Hey everyone, so here I am making a mobile phone wallpaper for one of my customers. This is his bearded dragon pet, which I've just made a clipping mask and cut out of a photograph, and then used the bitmap trace tool to create this image. But I'm now adding the gradients to each section, and I thought it would be a good time to create a gradient tutorial for the channel. So I'm going to try and replicate this rectangle here. First up, I'm going to hit the R button and just draw out a similar shape. And then I'm going to hit G for the gradient tool, which can be found just here on the left hand side of the toolbar. And we're going to click, hold and drag down. You can hold down Control to get a nice straight edge. And you should have something like that. Now to change the colours, just click on the first stop at the top there, and we're going to use the same green as I did before, and then we're going to click on the lower section, the lower stop there, and use the yellow, and that gives us the basic gradient. Now we can manipulate these stops by just clicking on them and moving them around. Do the same with the top one. If we just bring that down, and the closer they become, the more aggressive the transition is, until it becomes pretty much a straight line, and the closer they get, the more difficult they are to control. But we don't want that, we want a gradient, so I'll just stretch that back out. So with our gradient in place, perhaps you've gone off and you've done other work, you've deselected the shape and the gradient. You need to get back to that gradient to edit it, so just hit S or click on the select and transform objects tool, select the shape and then hit G, and that will automatically bring up the stops that you put in last time. Now if you wanted to add a stop or add another colour, if you click on the square stop and then click on the insert new stop tool, it will drop a new stop in the middle, and you can now click on that and assign a new colour to it. And in the same way as before, you can manipulate your way around and change it however you want, and it will act in the same way. And if you make a mistake or decide you don't need it, you can just click on the tool, delete stop, and that will put it back to where it was. And of course, if you needed a like a rainbow effect, you can just keep adding the stops. If you click on the square stop, you can add one in and just keep clicking on insert new stop and get as many as you need and add as many colours as you want. So that was an example of Inkscape's linear gradient tool. We're now going to look at the radial gradient tool. So I'm going to hit E to bring up the circle tool, or you can just select it from the toolbar on the left there. I'm going to hold down Control and just drag out a circle. I'm now going to hit G for the gradient tool, and we're going to make a change to this selection at the top here. There's a few tool options. So it will default to create linear gradient and create gradient in the fill. So we're going to change the first one to create radial gradient, and we're going to click anywhere on the circle. Let's put it in the center. It doesn't have to be. I'm going to hold down Control and just drag up, and that will create a radial gradient. Now, the same way as the first example, I'm going to click on the square stop and then select the green, and then you can select on either of these two. I'll show you what they do in a second. And hit the yellow, and there we have like a round version of the first example. Now these two stops, you can select those, and they control the axis of the radial gradient, and you can manipulate those however you wish. And in the same way as before, you can add in a node. If I just click on this square, it's got to be the square stop. You can add nodes to those gradients. Let's just click on blue and manipulate those how you wish. And of course, you don't have to have it on the center. You can offset it and create different effects. That way, let's just put it this way and drag across. You can do all sorts. You can also add a gradient to a stroke. So I'm just going to select the first shape and I'm going to add a stroke to that by holding down Shift. And let's have a nice contrast colour. Let's go for red. And then we're going to head back to the gradient tool with G. And it will bring up, as I said before, the previous stops for those colour inputs. Now, we'll go back up to the little toolbar for the gradient tool. We're going to go from the gradient in the fill, which is what it will default to gradient in the stroke. Let's just select that. And the same way, just drag down and you'll see that gradient taking effect. And then let's just click on the bottom stop and add a colour. Let's go for this blue. And yep, same again. You can just move those around however you want to get the effects you need. So now we've established how to create a gradient on a fill and a gradient on a stroke. But supposing we wanted to transfer a gradient style onto another object. So we're going to take the stroke from the rectangle and we're going to put it over onto the circle. So hit S and select the circle. And to copy the stroke style, first we need a stroke. So we're going to hit Shift and we'll do the red again. And then we can come over to the stroke paint, stroke style and fill tabs. And we're going to move from it will default to flat color. We're going to move to linear gradient. We just click on that and it'll bring up all the previous gradients that we've been using. So that's the one that we used on the rectangle. So just click on that and it will transfer the layer style over onto the other object. So that's how you copy over a stroke style onto another object. And if you want to copy over the fill style, it works in much the same way. Just click on the object and we're going to move from our stroke paint over to fill. And then just select the gradient that you want to use. And that's all there is to it. I think I've told you everything I know about gradient tool, so I hope this has helped you guys out there. And now I've got to get back to finishing this guy off. See you in the next one.